Hello, sir. Sir, provide me co-host, right, so that I can share my screen.
Yeah, definitely. Good evening, sir.
Sir, can you share? Can you provide me co-host, right, so that I can share my screen?
Sure. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
I'll do the brief introduction. Then Mr. Swaminathan will. You are able to hear me, sir?
Yeah, yes.
So I'll just introduce, make the basic welcome address, followed by Mr. Swaminathan introducing you. Then we'll hand over the mic to you. From there, you can start. At that time, sharing will be provided to you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this evening's program. MSCFSL has great pleasure in welcoming you all. We are conducting our webinars on various topics related to markets. Mr. Nagapan, you are able to hear me?
A little more, I think.
Hari, am I audible?
Hari, you have to unmute yourself and speak.
Your voice is low.
Okay. Voice is low. Yeah.
Okay, I'll probably keep the mic closer and speak a little louder. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of MSCFSL and also on behalf of ISS, the stockbroking division of Interconnected Enterprises, I have great pleasure in welcoming you all to this evening's webinar. The topic for the day is how to find the right IPO, and IPO being the hot subject nowadays with the amount of issues coming and the success of so many issues. Obviously, this is a very hot topic nowadays. And whenever you say the primary market is very strong or there is a boom in IPO, we come across different opinions. I remember during the IT boom of 2000, during that time also, people used to say, what is this IT company? They don't have any factory. They don't have much building. They don't have any big investment in real assets. All they have is a 10,000 square feet floor, probably 100 people working for that. How do you expect me to invest in such a company? That kind of comments were quite common those days during the IT boom. Probably we are having a similar opinion being expressed these days about the IPOs which have come out recently. Just to take a case in point, when the Zomato IPO was being launched, during that the period prior to the IPO opening, there were comments in media, social media, and a lot of public comments that if it is placed at the higher end of the band, that is 72 rupees, the valuation is something like 60,000 crores. How is it worth 60,000 crores? The valuation of Hero Motor is only 50,000 crores. TVS Motor, 25,000 crores. The bikes used by these people, mostly the Zomato delivery guys, whether it is Hero Motor or TVS Motor had a market cap of only about 25,000 crores. If you are looking at hotels, Indian hotel, 16,000 crore of market capitalization. A big bank like Bank of Baroda, 40,000 crore market capitalization. Whereas Zomato, which has nothing to say as far as assets are concerned, how is it that it is valued at 60,000 crore? That is the type of comments that we were hearing. In fact, that led to even some of the people getting worried about whether to apply or not. But the issue happened to be a super success. And we all know that it is double the price now, almost double the price now, and the market cap of something like 1,10,000 crores. So such market is so unique in many ways. It has its own way of valuing companies and stocks. So what is the right way? How do you try to value a particular company? What is the correct valuation? Who is going to tell us about all this? We have an expert with us today to give us an idea about how to find the right IPO. So to tell us more about this, we have pleasure in welcoming Dr. P. Saravanan, faculty in IIM Tiruchirappalli. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we are going to hear a lot of wisdom from him. And I have pleasure in welcoming all the people associated with ISS, the Interconnected Enterprises, who are also doing the program along with MSc Financial Services today. Welcome to all the entire family of ISS for the day's program. I request our Vice President Finance, Mr. Swaminathan, to formally introduce our chief guest for the day. Mr. Swaminathan.
Good evening, gentlemen. Mr. Saravanan has got a phenomenal experience in the area of finance, corporate financing and security. He is presently the professor of IIM Trichy in finance. He has got a very interest in the areas of consulting, as well as he has also reviewed a lot of theses and papers. Mr. Saravanan has been a consultant in a lot of public sectors like Oil India and XLRI. He is also a visiting faculty in IIM Shillong, IIM Indore, and he is very widely connected with all the management institute, and he is a person who has got a balanced knowledge on the academic side as well as on the professional side. He has also been a consulting for a lot of, even in some of the corporate companies like public sector companies and Department of Food Supplies. In fact, some of the government organizations also have taken his consultancy. So I welcome Mr. Saravanan so that we can enrich, gather more knowledge about his experience in the IPO. Welcome, Mr. Saravanan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Saravanan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So are you able to see the screen, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. So Mr. Lagapan, I would like to thank Mr. Lagapan, who connected me through MSc, and Mr. Sundar Swaminathan for all the coordination and all the welcoming message. Just I would like to share some of my thoughts on how to select the right IPO, because there is no right wrong answer in choosing an IPO. As already Mr. Sundar mentioned very clearly that there is a lot of behavioral aspects are assigned associated with the stock market aspect, because in fact we have a separate subject or separate domain which is developing of late in the last 1 decade called behavioral finance. So it is connecting the psychology of the human being and how the psychology of the human being is connected to the stock market. So therefore, there is no right wrong answer per se. Just I share some of my thoughts on being a common man or being a common investor who don't have much idea about the IPO, how generally one can choose. But it's only a general kind of guidelines one can look at that. So to start with, let's ask a very simple question. What is an IPO basically? So if you look at what is an IPO, basically it's a process by which a company goes public. So that's what IPO basically. So it's a process by which a company goes public. Why a company goes public? When a company needs funds. Generally, when a company needs funds, it can raise the funds, broadly speaking, through the equity or through debt. Of course, there are different variations of equity, different variations of debts are available. Broadly speaking, a company can raise funds either through debt or it can rise through equity. Suppose if I am a promoter, I wanted to start a company on my own. So according to the SEBI's current norm, I got to bring from my own packet, being a promoter, 20% equity. I wanted to set up my own company, then SEBI say that as a promoter, you bring minimum 20% from your packet and the balance you can write from the public. So if I have a business idea, I come to the investors community like you and tell you, hey, look, this is what is the business idea I have. Being a promoter, I have 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever the number that I have, it's my own money. For the balance money, I wanted you people to invest in my company in the equity shares. So that's what broadly, IPO meant. So, so if you look at that other way of funding for my business, I have my own money of 20, and for the balance money, I can go and knock at the door of a bank, or I may go and knock at the bond market. But by and large, in India, corporations generally speaking, they don't go to bond market. Generally, corporations, whenever they need funds in the form of debt, they generally go and knock at the door of a bank rather than the bond market. I hope most of you know the reason why most of the corporations are going and knocking at the door of a bank rather than going to the bond market per se. You already know the reason, because the bond market is not very well developed for the corporate bonds. Of course, bond market is the biggest market, much bigger than the equity market in terms of the government bonds. As far as the corporate bonds are concerned, it is still kind of in the process of developing comparing to the Western world. So therefore, the debt and equity. So these are the only two broad sources of funding for a firm. So we'll focus more on equity. So I have a business idea. As a promoter, I invest say 25% or 26% or 30% of money from my own packet. For the balance of the money, I come to people like you. People like you means people who are investors community, seeking funding. So that's what I meant by it's a process by which a firm goes for public. So why the firm goes for public? It needs funds. So why the firm needs funds? So maybe it raises capital for multiple reasons. One of the very popular company, most of you know, very recently, they sold one part of the company to pay off their debts, because I feel that my balance sheet is debt heavy. So I wanted to make my balance sheet debt light. So I can raise more equity. I can raise more equity and pay off the debts. Or I can raise money from the market to fund a new project. I have an innovative idea or I have an innovative business model. So I need funds for funding that new project. I need funds. So I'm coming to the market seeking funding. Or I wanted to go for capacity expansion, because all the all the COVID-19 scenario is about to complete, and life is going to be normal very shortly. So all the firms are geared. All the firms are geared for the next upward cycle of the business, of their respective business. So I wanted to do a capacity expansion, or I wanted to fund a new project. So whatever will be the reason, the company tells accordingly they do. Or some companies need funds for their simple R&D. So it's a very common phenomena. R&D is a very common phenomena if you observe, companies like pharmaceutical. In pharmaceutical, R&D is a major critical expense, because without R&D, a company cannot sustain in the market for a long time. Okay, so a company can also come to IPO seeking R&D for the R&D expense. Also, they can ask, or even they may ask funds for acquiring some other companies, or even acquiring some other businesses. So there are a variety of reasons why a company come to the market seeking funds from the investors like you and me, right? So this is what is called as a how or why a company goes into public and the process. So now let us have a quick look at IPOs in India, a snapshot of looking at data from 2007 to 2021. I wanted to draw your attention to the firms which I highlighted over here. If you look at the data of 2007, we had an IPO, highest number of IPO, 108 number of IPOs came, and they raised funds to the tune of 33,946. And what I meant by successful IPO means the IPO got listed on the day of listing. It got gain. It was on gain, and over a period of next 3 months, it was also showing a gain number. Positive number. Whereas you compare that data with that of 2021, this data I collected till 30th July 2021. I collected. You compare the data with the till 2021. So number of IPOs are only 36, and look at the amount of funds raised by the firms, almost doubled. Almost doubled. So 108 to number of firms come for IPO, the number of firms have come down, whereas the funds raised from the market is gone up like anything. And out of the 30 such IPOs so far, till 30th July data, all the IPOs are successful. On the day of listing, they are getting gain, and the subsequent 3 months they are also getting gain, right? So there is no failed IPO at all. There is no failed IPO at all. So that is what is the scenario now. So that's what even our friend Sundar was also talking. Where is the plant and machinery for the company? Where is the manufacturing capacity? How can I invest on a simple idea? How can I invest my money on a simple idea? Because generally we have a perception that when you want to invest in a company, the company needs to have a land and building, plant and machinery, they should have a manufacturing facility, a service facility. How can I invest in a company who don't have any tangible assets? For instance, he rightly mentioned about the IT firms. Couple of years, 1 decade ago, when IT firms come, people are very much afraid. People are worried. How can I invest on an IT firm who don't have any fixed and tangible assets? Even today, they don't have any fixed and tangible assets, but they are sitting on a huge bag of cash. All the IT firms are sitting on a huge bag of cash. That's a different reason. So this is the broad, bird's eye view of, the IPO status in India quickly between 2007 to 2021. But at the same time, the story is not full of, bed of roses. Okay, for the same period of time, if you look at here, in 2007, as I said earlier, there are 108 firms who are listed. So 31 firms were listed at loss. By taking the 10th August 2021 data, there are 41 firms whose current market price is below their offer price. See, it's not full. It's not always full bed of roses, right? And 42 firms are trading at around with a 20% profit as on 10th August 2021. These are some of the interesting observations on the trend of how the IPO is happening in the Indian context. Okay, now let us look at two interesting firms who got a successful IPOs. One is, most of you must have observed, even some of you applied and got allotted some shares in a company called Tatva Chintan Pharma Chemical Limited. So why this company came for IPO? Why did this company came for IPO? They wanted to go for, they need fund for capex. They need fund for capex. I mean, basically, they wanted to expand their manufacturing facility. They wanted to expand their existing manufacturing facility, and they also wanted to invest money in R&D. So that's the reason why they came out for funding. So the date of listing was 29th July 2021, and the day one or the day of listing, they got a gain of 113.32%. Profit at the current market price, by considering the 10th of this month, it made a profit of 96.20%. Okay. So, world's second largest and India's only manufacturer of SDS that are used in the emission control. That is some USP of this firm. I don't know how many of you know about this one. And they export to more than 25 countries. So this is one of the very recently, listed, got a very successful IPO, I can say. If you look at the company's record, the company is having a steady growth in assets in terms of revenue and PAT. So these are some interesting numbers to know. What is the asset base of the company, how is their revenue, how is their PAT. These are some of the interesting numbers to get. So another interesting company is GR Intra Projects Limited. So date of listing 19 July 2021, and day one closed a gain of 3 digits, 108.70 on the day one listing. And what is this business? What do? They focus predominantly on government and National Highways Authorities projects. So they are more into more government project and NHAI project. So what is so special about the company? There is no instance of failure. To meet the standards of the roads constructed by them. And at least 50% of the projects completed before time. So this is something very interesting. Many of you are in the field of project management, and completing any project before time is really a very tough task and difficult task. and they have a track record of at least 50% of the project they complete ahead of time. So by looking at the last 3 years data, again, steady growth in assets, revenue, and PAT. As I said earlier, we need to look at these numbers on any companies. Okay, it's not all full bed of roses. There are some companies who failed miserably. Let's look at some recently failed firms. As most of you know about this firm, Kalyan Jewellers. They made a lot of hype. They made a lot of hype in the market. You know, by the time the IPO was about to happen, there was one full page ad in Economic Times and all the leading newspapers, right? So the date of listing was 26th March 2021, and the day one closed minus 13.45. So loss, when I say current market price, by considering 10th of August, I considered, so they book a loss of 22.87. So how do you compare this company? Why they failed miserably? There are multiple reasons, but they kind of trial with Titan. We can compare it with the Titan firm. We can compare with reference to their revenue, with reference to their EBITDA or PAT, whatever number you want to compare, you can compare. So if you compare on these two parameters, EBITDA is lower than even small players. Like you look at the balance sheet of Tribhuvan Das or even PC Jewellers. Their numbers are much lower. Comparing to their number, their numbers are much lower. So they are having, if you calculate the inventory turnover ratio, so they have a high inventory of 5 months. Once when the stock comes in, it goes out of their hand after 5 months. They're holding the stock for 5 months, and the firm is having a high amount of debt. You all know, right? When you're having a high amount of leverage, in all good time, your results will get magnified. In all the bad times, also get magnified, right? So the firm is also into high leverage. Another firm which got failed, of course, is a real estate investment trust. Brookfield India, date of listing was 16th of 2021. So day one closed minus 1.83, right? And the backed by Brookfield Asset Management. So this is the, most of you know that this is one of the world's largest AMC. So one of the world's largest asset management company. So in spite of that, they failed because they have an inconsistent PAT. They have had an inconsistent PAT and highly levered. How do you say highly levered? Comparing to its peers. That's a very important point. I mean, I urge every one of you to look at all the ratios, not in isolation. If you wanted to compare any company, what is their debt equity ratio or any number or GP ratio, profitability ratio or whatever ratio you compare it with the comparable peers in the industry. Don't read any ratio in isolation. Please kindly keep this as a standing rule. So what happened? Most of the investors, they look at, they have a current ratio 2:1. Is it good, sir, or is it bad? You can't make any comment. You have to look at the industry in which they are operating. Who are all the comparable players with them? With that only we can compare. So as far as the Brookfield is concerned, when you compare with the other players, so they are highly levered. So they are sitting in a huge amount of debt. And if you look at their major source of income is rental income from offices. As most of you know that the senior in the last 2 years, so we all are work from home. So most of us are, even today we are working from home, right? So where is the question of going to office and where is the question of getting the rental income? So all those things are gone. So that's also one of the question mark as far as the future revenue of this company is concerned. That's also a question mark about the future revenue of this company is concerned. Okay, so these are some of the success stories, some of the failure stories about the IPO. Now, how do I choose as a common investor? How do I choose the right IPO? So what do I need to look at that? What do I need to look at that? When I look at that, so-and-so company comes to the market, what do I need to look at that? So the first and foremost thing that as a common investor, what one should look at that, what is this company all about? You should understand the company and understand the industry. Okay, sir, understanding the company is okay. Why should I understand the industry? Understanding the company, okay. I should also understand about the industry because every industry has its own nuances. Every industry has its own nuances. Say, for instance, if we talk about the iron and steel industry as an industry, they have a long business cycle. I hope most of you know, right? When they have a long business cycle, when the trend is upward, it will be upward for quite some time. For a very long time, it will be upward. So you enter exactly at the time when it is about to pick up, then you are going to make money over a period of time. And when they are coming down, and the downward trend is also for a very long time. Okay, so by chance, if you enter into that the downward trend, you enter into that particular company, then you end up booking loss, and you worry, what happened? I bought the stock at the right time. Why I am not able to make a profit? Right. So it is very important not only to understand the company, most important to understand the industry also. Right. As Mr. Sundaram mentioned at the beginning about the IT firms. if you look at IT firms, any firm, whether you talk about Infi or you talk about TCS, any firm, when you find free time, just look at download their balance sheet, latest balance sheet. Look at the cash. Look at the cash and cash equivalent. There is one heading you could see in the balance sheet, cash and cash equivalents, and short-term investments. You can see only these numbers. Cash and cash equivalent and short-term investments. That is nothing but the company is sitting on a huge bag of cash. You name any company, reasonably good IT company, they are sitting on a huge bag of cash. Technically speaking, that huge bag of cash belongs to shareholders. Instead of giving it back to the shareholders, the company is holding that cash. Why most of IT firms are sitting on a huge bag of cash? Any idea? They don't have any tangible fixed assets, no land, building, machinery, right? So no heavy investment on those things. Only investment is on their human capital. Then why they are sitting on a huge bag of cash? Because as an industry, they wanted to keep more cash. Why? Because at any point of time, if the technology changes, at any point of time, the technology changes, the company should have adequate cash to embrace the new technology. Or there is someone who come out with the innovative technology, I should have adequate cash to go and buy that company. All cash deal. All cash deal. So I need to have a lot of cash with me. I mean here the IT firms I'm talking. So that's the reason why they are sitting on a huge bag of cash. That's the reason why they are sitting on a huge bag of cash. But what happened? Most of the people think that why they are holding my money, why they are not returning my money back to me, give us dividend. You must be knowing that. Many people have written an open letter to the chairman of the company asking why the company is sitting on a huge bag of cash and it is not returning back to the shareholders. You must be knowing what company I'm talking. Okay, so therefore the basic point is, it's very important point is, it is not essential, it is important to not only understand the company, you should also understand the industry in which the company operates. That's the most important point. Another interesting point, it's not my views, it's the view of the investment guru we all follow. Never invest in a business you can't understand. By Warren Buffett. So to simplify that, there is a complicated business model which you don't understand. You don't know where the revenue for the company is coming. You don't understand where the cash is being invested. Please don't even go close to that. If you are able to understand the business model, then you can invest. Of course, this is having a drawback. What is the drawback? I don't understand the business model well. That may be a good company. I may lose. Okay, it's okay. It is not possible for me to have an expertise in all the businesses. But at least whatever the business you are able to understand, you should have a thorough grounding on that. You should have a thorough grounding on that, right? So that's a very important point, which is given by Warren Buffett. And you should understand the growth prospects. This is a very important point. I often tell this point to the students. The money that you and me pay today, I repeat, the money that you and me pay today to buy a share or to apply for an IPO is not for its past performance. It's always for the future performance. So we need to focus what is hereafter. What is hereafter? So the company did well in the last 3 years, P&L, balance sheet, all numbers are in front of me. So how the company is going to perform in the next 3 years or in the reasonably forecastable period of time. You can't predict what happened 20 years down the line. At least we should be able to reasonably predict what will happen in the next 3 years, at least. Okay. So you should understand the growth prospects for the company and understand the financial strength where the money is coming for the company. Understand what is the financial strength of the company. Very important. That's why I said you look at the revenue, you look at the EBITDA, look at the PAT, look at some important key numbers. So that's why I said to look at the important numbers and find out what are the financial strengths of the company, right? And from the company point of view, this is most important point. In IPO, you should know where your money goes. So the company say that I wanted to retire all my debt. Or the company say I wanted to pay dividend. I mean, it's not possible. Imagine the company says such kind of reasons. So your money is not going to be used in a productive manner. Your money is not going to be used in a productive manner. So you should know where the funds are going to be used. The company say, I wanted to go for capacity expansion. I wanted to go for R&D, or I wanted to acquire some other firms. These are fantastic ideas. By doing this investment, you expect the company's revenue to grow, so the profit to grow. So we all will grow in the company, right? So that's a very important point. If that help in growth of the business, I said capacity expansion, R&D, acquiring another company. So definitely if it is going to help the growth of the business, you can go ahead with that. So don't overpay even if the company is good. It's a very important point. So what do you mean by overpay? We are not going to talk about the valuation. There are different methods of valuation which is available. You pick up any standard corporate finance or valuation book, you pick up. There are different methods of valuations are there. So do the valuation on your own. So why there are varied rates and for the same stock? Different people are putting a different prices, because we all do valuation based upon the information available to us, based upon the assumptions that we are making. Okay, so that's the reason why we are having a different valuation. So according to you, if you feel that that stock is overvalued, don't overpay. The company may be a good company. The company may be a good company. You may lose the opportunity. That's all. So when the price comes down, you can go and pick up the company again, right? So another important parameter that you need to look at is the promoter. Very, very important person. So you all know who is the promoter. So promoter is a person who conceives the idea to start the business and actually implement that. It's not only I conceive and forget. I conceive the idea to start the business and then operationalize it. I cannot keep all my business plan in an Excel sheet. I cannot keep all my business plan in an Excel sheet. Right? I need to execute that. Right? So promoter is a person who conceives the idea and start the business. So you need to look at him. So you have to study the track record. You have to study the track record of the promoter. What do you mean track record of the promoter? You have to look at that whether he is already headed some other businesses, whether he already helped some other businesses. What is his age? What is his experience? Look at all the profile. Look at all the profile of the promoter, right? So what is the performance pre-IPO? What is the performance pre-IPO? What is the performance post-IPO? When I say post-IPO, we talk about that all the companies will issue something called a prospectus, or what you call red herring prospectus. You look at that red herring prospectus. In that, all companies will provide what is the projected P&L balance sheet of the company. So look at the past and look at the future. Look at the past and look at the future. So if there's any issue about the integrity of the promoter, don't even think of buying that particular company. Don't even think of applying the company. Why? Because this is a new risk. This is the new risk of late, right? How many shareholders are pledging their shares outside? We have a data. You just check with the BSE site. You can find out all the information. So the integrity is a question mark. Don't even go close to that. A promoter exiting the business via IPO is definitely a red flag. Why? A promoter is exiting the business by means of IPO is a red flag, right? So the integrity, I written one small piece some time ago in 2019. It's a new type of risk. Integrity risk is a new type of risk, right? So what is happening? What is happening when the promoters are pledging their shares? And the promoters are pledging their shares. It's a simple 1,000-word. When you find 3 times, you can put that. Here I also talked about on IPO grading. This concept of IPO grading was introduced by SEBI some time ago. Later on, they withdrew that concept. I don't know what the reason, but that was kind of giving a guidance for the people who have no finance background. But however, integrity risk is a very important risk. Integrity risk is a very important risk. Okay. Then we need to look at the prospectus. This also I often tell my students, hey, download the prospectus of Zomato or whatever the company you wanted to invest, you read that. They download and say, sir, that is 350 pages, sir. How do I read? Yeah, it's very difficult. You can't read 350 pages in 3 days and apply for an IPO. Read at least important parameters. Read at least important parameters. Right? What is the parameter you need to look at that? So they provide, the prospectus provide all the info about the company, about the promoter, the business model, what is the associated risk, among other details. They give you tons and tons of information. They give tons and tons of information. That's why it is 350 pages. Roughly, I'm saying that. Right? So one could not 100% believe that prospectus. Probably it could be biased. It's, maybe because it's prepared to show company in a better picture. It's prepared to show a company in a better picture. So you have to read it with a pinch of salt. However, as an investor, one should look at what the funds will be used for. This is, I keep on repeating. They are getting the funds, where the money is going. What do they wanted to do with your money or with our money? They wanted to go for capacity expansion, or they wanted to do an acquisition, or they wanted to go for R&D. We need to look at that very carefully. Specific goals given are much better than to know the clarity of the money. They said that some companies come out with very categorically. Some companies say very categorically. Some other companies will not say very explicitly. They kind of cover it up. Yeah, we need for expansion. What kind of expansion? Is it a plant capacity expansion? They don't say all those things. Is it on capex? Are you planning to acquire any company? Nothing. For the general, for the general purpose of the company. So you be careful. If they say that used for R&D, expansion, etc., are generally better than saying I wanted to pay off my debts. promoter wanted to exit the company. Then these are the solid reasons to invest in applying for an IPO. Another important person to whom we need to look at is the underwriter. I hope most of you know. In any IPO, there are more than 12 people are associated. In any IPO, more than 12 people are associated. You already know. Who are that 12 people? One of the person we call him is the book running lead manager. He is the big Dala, book running lead manager. He will manage the entire show. Under book, who are these people? Basically, these are the people, investment bankers. So book running lead manager is having many people under him. They will manage the complete show. In this, the role of the underwriter is very important. The role of the underwriter is very important. As per the Companies Act 2013, any company which comes to the market for IPO, they should have minimum demand of 90%. If the demand is less than 90% in the market, you cannot roll out your IPO. So in order to avoid this risk, what most of the companies will do, they hire or they appoint somebody called underwriter. So what is the role of the underwriter? Underwriter will promote your company. Underwriter will do all kinds of roadshow. He will ensure that every day some good news about your company is flashed in the leading business newspaper. So he will ensure that all your shares are being sold out in the IPO market. By chance, if this subscription is only 83%, so the balance 7% will be absorbed by the underwriter. So that is the kind of assurance that the underwriter is giving to the company, of course, for agreed fees. Okay. So there is a lot of study research which is being done in both Indian market as well as in the Western market on the concept of how the underwriter name or who is the underwriter and the success of the IPO. A lot of literature is being done. So therefore, we should check who is the underwriter for the IPO. Generally, a reputed underwriter is a good signal. Generally, a reputed underwriter is underwriting your company. It's a good signal for common people like us. Okay, so also company is doing the underwriting. So then this company must be fairly a good company, right? And reputed underwriters generally, do underwriting only for good companies. Generally, they generally do, associate themselves with good companies. So because their reputation is at stake, right? They will not do for all companies. But sometimes it may happen, the underwriter may be good, but they may back a bad issue. That's also possible. The underwriter may be good, but they may back a bad issue also. Okay, so these are some parameters you can look at that. Often people talk about this point. Sir, so many times oversubscribed, sir. 108 times oversubscribed, 45 times oversubscribed. So that indicates there's a steam in the market. There's a demand for the stock in the market. Okay, very good. And oversubscribed IPO is not necessarily a good investment opportunity. What are you saying, sir? There is so much steam in the market, so much demand in the market. How can you say that an oversubscribed IPO is not necessarily a good company? Please be noted, the investment should be done based on the future prospects. I repeat, the money that you and me pay today to buy a share or even to apply for an IPO is always for the future performance of the company. Not because it is oversubscribed by 50 times, you should not go and buy. That's what I said, that the behavioral bias. Behavioral bias. Not it is oversubscribed, so I will also go and buy. No, don't do that mistake. So look at the future prospects of the company. So that is the only determining factor. Not everybody is investing, so I will also go and invest. No, big no. Okay. It may be the case why so much hype, maybe because of the hot market, maybe a hype, a lot of steam about the company, a lot of promotional activities for the company. It could be the reason. You see some of the oversubscribed IPOs that failed miserably. You know all about this company. Surya Small Finance Bank, listed on 26th March 2021. So oversubscribed by QIBs 2.18 times, non-institutional investors 1.31. Retail investors 3 times oversubscribed. On the day one, minus 10%, 9.44. By looking at the 10th of this month, it's a loss of minus 38.44%. See, it's oversubscribed by many times. Industry, the reason why, because their net interest margins are very narrow. The return on assets is low. Return on advances and equity advances are low. So various reasons why this company failed. If you look at the gross NPA of the company is 9.3%. Gross NPA. No, you all know what it was. So lot of bad loans, right? Anyway, that's the reason. Now, oversubscribed IPO that failed, I can give you one more company example. Most of you know about this company, Intra International. So Ircon International is a project management company listed on 28th September 2018. So look at us, qualified institutional bidders, they subscribed 12.29 times, non-institutional investors 9.92, investors close to 10%. Day one minus 12.28. Current market price 53.53 by comparing the 10th of this date. So revenue reduced, net profit is half of 2013 years. So the company came with the offer for sale. It's a government company, you all know. So government wanted to offload their shares through the offer for sale route. So what happened? Whatever the money that we pay, that is not going to the promoters of the company. The promoters wanted to sell. Government wanted to sell. So that money is not going back to the company, right? So there is no economic activity on that. So declining margin, various reasons. If you look at that, the P&L account of the company, balance sheet of the company, you can find out n number of reasons why this is happening. So finally, the investor. So people like you and me. So please remember, it is you who are investing. These are like people like you and me. We are the people who are investing, right? The company should match your investment goals and your risk profile. That's a very important point. So every one of us have an investment goal. Every one of us have our own risk profile. I mean, this is a very LKG part of investment science literature. Every one of us have an investment goal. So when I retire, I want to have a corpus of 20 crore. Someone have in the next 10 years, when my son goes for higher education, I should have 2 crore as my corpus. So everyone have certain financial goals. So look at whether subscribing to that IPO matches with your investment goal and your risk profile. You all know that risk profile, we call by a different name. Risk profile, risk appetite, we call by all these names. So what is risk profile or risk appetite? How much are you willing to lose? How much are you willing to lose, right? So this is not same for me, not same for all of you on the screen on the other side. This will vary from person to person. This will vary from person to person. What is your investment goal? Depending upon your age and your expectation, what is your profession, what is your ambition? There are so many factors, right? So today we can measure all those things. To measure the risk profile of a person, we have tested, proved questionnaires are available. So through those instruments, we can measure the risk profile of an individual. So the investment should improve your risk return ratio of your portfolio. So we are not talking about, when I say portfolio, we are having all kinds of assets in our basket. So we have some equity, we have some bond, corporate bond, government bond, we have some gold, not the jewelry form for the investment purpose, right? We have a basket of assets. By adding one more asset into your basket, so the risk return ratio should improve. The overall portfolio risk should come down, or in other words, in a simple language, the risk return ratio should improve in your overall portfolio. So that's the determining factor, most important factor. By adding one more stock or by applying for one more IPO, whether my overall portfolio is in a better position or not. If it is in a better position, go ahead. If you feel that it is not going to be in a better position, please stay away from that. Okay. So I'll show you some names that are surprised in the post IPO performance. This is some data I collected recently. I draw your attention only for 2 companies. V-Mart Retail, who came to IPO in the year 2013. Please look at the number of times subscribed, 1.2 times. 1.2 times. On the day one, it was minus 2.26. It is considered as not a failed IPO. It is considered a failed IPO. Today, if you look at the current profit in the current market price, you are getting a profit of 1,591%. An IPO with the lowest 1.2. Okay, that's the lowest in this entire list. You can see, there's one more lowest, the second lowest in this entire list, right? So they have a profit margin this much. Okay. Most hype, 2018, Apollo Microsystem, 248.51 times. 248.51 times. Okay, day one, they got 65% gain. Great. What is the number today? As on 10th August, minus 57.6. Minus 57.6, right? So these are some of the IPOs that surprise, the behavioral aspects of the market. So this is one piece which I written sometime in the early part of 2021. I written one small piece in Finance Express. How to find the right IPO to invest on. Okay, one first advice or the first view of mine: avoid buying hype shares. Avoid buying hype shares. Okay, so look at that. Read the fine print of red herring prospectus. So we may not have time to read all the 300 pages and take a decision within 3 days or within 5 days. We need to take a call to invest or not to invest. But that's available in the with the SEBI from the draft red herring prospectus onwards. So download it, read it leisurely. At least read the major points. At least read the major points. At least read the who are the members of the board. Read what are the risks as disclosed by the respective company. Look at all the key parameters and take a call to invest or not invest. So with this, I will stop. I have been given 40 minutes, so I clocked 42 minutes. So I stop here. And thank you very much. If you have any queries, I'm very glad to take up these questions.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation. Lot of wisdom being shared. Of course, people will have so many questions to ask. Quite a few requests during the course of the presentation to do something in Tamil so that
Okay.
from this region are able to understand.
Sure, yeah.
First, I'll hand it over to Mr. Nagappan for doing a summing up in Tamil. Then subsequently, I'll take, we'll open the floor for questions and answers.
Sure.
Mr. Nagappan, over to you.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, okay. See, summarize வந்து நம்ம பாம்பேல இருந்து ISS Harikrishnan, he said he will do it. But just over 3-4 points which I understood or I noted from Professor's speech. முதல்ல வந்து நம்ம இந்த IPO அப்ளை பண்ணும்பொழுது அவங்க என்ன தொழில்ல இருக்காங்க, அந்த தொழில் எப்படி இருக்கு, அது நல்லா இருக்கா, சன்ரைஸ் செக்டாராங்கிறத பார்க்கணும். அதற்கு அடுத்தது வந்து நம்ம கொடுக்கக்கூடிய பணம் எங்க போகுது. இப்போ வந்து ஆஃபர் ஃபார் சேல்னு இருக்கு, அதே IPOன்னு சொல்றாங்க, அது தப்பு. ஆக்சுவலா ஆஃபர் ஃபார் சேல்ல வந்து ப்ரொமோட்டர் வந்து அவருடைய ஷேரை வித்துட்டு போறாருன்னா அது வந்து மே நாட் பி ப்ராபப்ளி a குட் சைன். ஏன்னா அந்த பணம் வந்து ப்ரொமோட்டருக்கு போகுது. அதே IPOல கம்பெனி பணத்துக்குள்ள வருதுங்க, கம்பெனிக்குள்ள வந்து பணம் வருதுன்னு சொல்லும் பொழுது அது வந்து ஒரு எக்ஸ்பான்ஷனுக்கு போகுதா, ஒரு டைவர்சிபிகேஷனுக்கு போகுதா, அது எப்படி வேர் யுவர் மணி கோஸ்ங்கிறத பாருன்னு சொன்னாரு. அதே மாதிரி ப்ரொமோட்டரோட இன்டெகிரிட்டியை பார்த்துக்க சொன்னாரு, அந்த ரெப்புடேஷனை. அதே மாதிரி அண்டர் ரைட்டரோட ரெப்புடேஷன் இஸ் ஆல்சோ இம்பார்ட்டன்ட், ஏன்னா இஸ் டேக்கிங் ரிஸ்க். அப்புறம் ரொம்ப ஹைலி லெவரேஜா இருந்தா பெட்டர் டு அவாய்ட் இட். அதே மாதிரி வேல்யூவேஷன் பார்க்கும் பொழுது நம்ம வந்து பியர் டு பியர் வேல்யூவேஷன் பார்க்கணுமே தவிர இது ஐசோலேட்டடா வேல்யூவேஷன் நம்ம பார்க்க கூடாது அப்படின்னாரு. இன்னும் நிறைய விஷயங்கள் சொன்னாரு. ப்ராப்ளி ஹரி when he says that he will அதெல்லாம் சொல்லுவாரு. பட் எனக்கு 2 கேள்வி ப்ரொஃபசர் உங்கள்கிட்ட. ஒண்ணு வந்து இப்போ வந்து சில கம்பெனி நல்ல நிர்வாகம், எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச வரைக்கும் அவங்க ஓரளவு நல்ல நேர்மையான நிர்வாகம், அவங்க வந்து பங்கு வெளியிடுறாங்க, பங்கு சந்தையில பட்டியலிடப்பட்டு நல்லா வர்த்தகம் நடந்துகிட்டு இருக்கு, வணிகம் நல்ல விலையிலையும் போகுது. திடீர்னு ஒரு நாள் வந்து அவங்க டீலிஸ்ட் பண்றாங்க. அவங்க டீலிஸ்ட் பண்ணும்போது கூட நியாயமான விலைக்கும் அதிகமான விலை கொடுத்து தான் டீலிஸ்ட் பண்றாங்க. ஓகே, அவங்க வந்து அடிச்சு வாங்கல நம்மகிட்ட, இப்போ போயிட்டாங்க. இப்ப திரும்ப வந்து ரீலிஸ்ட் பண்றாங்க ஒரு 7-8-9 வருஷம் கழிச்சு. இது நியாயமா? ஒன்று. இப்ப நம்ம ரொம்ப இதுல வந்து இப்ப நான் ஒரு முதலீட்டாளரா எனக்கு ஒரு கோபம் வருது, ஒரு தார்மீக கோபம் வருது. உங்களை ஏமாத்தி 15 ரூபாய்க்கு 20 ரூபாய்க்கு ஷேர் வாங்கிட்டு போயிட்டாங்க, இன்னைக்கு வந்து 70 ரூபா 40 ரூபாய்க்கு வராங்களே, இவங்களை நம்புறதா இல்லையா? ஆனா எனக்கு இன்னொரு பக்கம் தெரியுது அவங்க நல்ல மேனேஜ்மெண்ட், மற்றபடி எஃபிஷியன்ட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட், கேப்பபிள் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட், அவ்வளவுலாம் ஒரு தேர் நாட் fly by night ஆபரேட்டர்ஸ்னு தெரியுது. அப்ப நான் இமோஷனலா இந்த டெசிஷனை எடுக்கிறதா? ப்ரொமோட்டர் நீங்க சொன்னீங்க இல்லையா, அதனால கேக்குறேன். இல்ல இதுதான் இவங்க வந்து மோசமான ஆளுன்னு அப்படின்னு நம்ம அந்த மாதிரி போறதா? இது ஒரு கேள்வி. 2வது கேள்வி வந்து QIPக்கு 1 month லாக்இன் இருக்கு. QIP அவங்க போடுறது வந்து 1 month லாக்இன் இருக்கும் பொழுது இந்த எந்த நியூ இஷ்யூ வந்து லிஸ்ட் ஆனாலும் முதல்ல ஒரு பெரிய பூமா லிஸ்ட் பண்ணிவிடுறாங்க. லிஸ்ட் பண்ணி அன்பிலீவபிள் பிரைஸுக்கு அது மேல ஏறி போயிடுது. 1 month கழிச்சு QIP விற்கிறப்போ அது பர்கர் கிங்ல பார்த்துருப்போம். ஸோ இது தெரியாம நடுவில் 1 மாசத்துல வந்து இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் எல்லாம் மாட்டிட்டுறாங்க. இது இந்த 1 monthங்கிறது சரியான டைமா, இல்ல இன்னும் 6 மாசம் தள்ளி போடலாமா, இல்ல முத நாளே எல்லாரையும் விற்க அலோவ் பண்ணலாமா, இல்ல இது எப்படி ஹேண்டில் பண்றது, அல்லது நம்ம அது ரூல் அப்படித்தான் இருக்கும், நம்மள எப்படி ஹேண்டில் பண்ணிக்கிறதா? 2 ஆங்கிள்லயும் நீங்க ஏன்னா you touched upon behavioral finance, that's one of my favorite subject, அதனால தான் கேக்குறேன்.
ஓகே, நல்ல கேள்வி சார். பேசிக்கா வந்து ஃபர்ஸ்ட் क्वेश्चन வந்து ப்ரொமோட்டர் வந்து நல்ல கம்பெனி திடீர்னு டீலிஸ்ட் பண்ணிட்டு போயிடுறாரு, திரும்ப ஒரு 10 வருஷம் கழிச்சு மார்க்கெட் வராரு, வரும்போது அதிகமான பணம் கேட்கிறாரு. நியாயமான நமக்கு கோவம் வரும். நமக்கு என்னன்னா எங்கிட்ட குறைச்ச விலைக்கு வித்துட்டு பணத்தை வாங்கிட்டு போயிட்டு திரும்ப வந்து அதே விலை கேட்கறியா அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. இப்ப நம்மளை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் பார்த்தாங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னா, being an investor, we wanted to make profit. That's all. நம்ம வந்து we need not necessarily take any decision based upon emotion. நீ அன்னைக்கு என்ன ஏமாத்திட்டு போனீங்க, இன்னைக்கு நான் ஷேர் வாங்க மாட்டேன் போயா அப்படி சொல்ல மாட்டோம், சொல்லக்கூடாது. If you ask me personally, that's my views. நம்ம being an investor, நம்மளோட ultimate objective வந்து we wanted to make money. We wanted to make money by using our own skill sets. நம்ம யாரும் ஏமாத்த போறதில்ல, நம்மளோட ஸ்கில் செட்டை யூஸ் பண்ணி வாங்கி வெயிட் பண்ணி போறோம். ஸோ அன்னைக்கு வந்துட்டு போனாலும் டெஃபினெட்லி நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி நமக்கு ஒரு கோவம் இருக்கும் அவர் மேல. பட் இருந்தாலும் அதனால நம்ம இந்த மாதிரி அவருக்கு ஐபிஓக்கு வரும்போது அவரை டிச் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு நம்ம நினைக்கக்கூடாது. திஸ் மை பர்சனல் ஒப்பீனியன். நமக்கு வந்து அல்டிமேட்லி யூ ஆல்ரெடி டோல்ட் ப்ரமோட்டர்ஸ் தெரிஞ்சு சொன்னாக்க நல்ல கம்பெனி, வெல் கவர்ன்ட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் சொன்னீங்க. ஸோ நல்ல வெல் கவர்ன்ட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் வந்து ஈவன் டீலிஸ்டிங் அப்போ கூட நல்ல பணம் கொடுத்து தான் வாங்கிட்டு போனாங்கன்னு சொன்னீங்க. ஸோ வென் யூ ஹேவ் such kind of confidence in the company, அந்த ஒரு பார்ட்டை வந்து நீங்க கொஞ்சம் நெகேட் பண்ணிட்டு, you can negate that particular aspect and then you can again if they come with a different avatar, அப்போ ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. How do you can buy it at this particular point of time, provided if you feel the valuations are okay. So that's point number one. And with reference to point number two, for the big fellas like QAB and all, there is a lock-in period of 1 month during which they cannot sell their shares. So அது வந்து it's a more of a policy decision by SEBI. ஏன்னா இப்போ இமீடியட்டா அந்த டே ஆஃப் லிஸ்டிங் நீங்க ஓபன் பண்ணீங்க அப்படின்னா there will be a lot of supply will come to the market. இப்போ ரீட்டைல் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் நம்மள மாதிரி பீப்புள் என்ன பண்ணா அப்படின்னா, we are not here to get gain on or to reap gain on the day of listing. நம்ம லிஸ்டிங் எனக்கே ஒத்து நம்ம பணத்தை சம்பாதிக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிற இன்டென்ஷன்ல தயவு செஞ்சு யாரும் போகாதீங்க. தட் இஸ் a very very bad strategy. இப்ப பார்த்தா நிறைய கணக்கு காட்டினேன் உங்களுக்கு, நிறைய கம்பெனி நல்ல ப்ராஃபிட் ஆன் த டே ஆஃப் லிஸ்டிங் வருது. ஓகே, சோ அதை பார்த்து போவாங்க. யூ ஷுட் கீப் யுவர் ஓன் இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் கோல்ஸ். நம்ம ஒரு ஷேர் வாங்கணும் அப்படின்னு சொன்னா, at the back of your mind you ask one question, எதுக்காக அதை வாங்குற அப்படின்னு கேளுங்க. உங்க மைண்டுக்குள்ளே you ask your question. then அந்த ஷேரை வாங்குறேன்னா, ஏற்கனவே என் போர்ட்ஃபோலியோ 15 ஷேர் வச்சிருக்கேன், உதாரணத்துக்கு வச்சுக்கோங்க. உங்க போர்ட்ஃபோலியோ 15 ஷேர் இருக்கு. இப்ப அது கூட இந்த ஷேரை நான் வாங்கி ஆட் பண்ணேன்னா, என்னோட ஓவரால் போர்ட்ஃபோலியோ ரிஸ்க் ரிட்டர்ன் ரேஷியோ எப்படி போகும், இது கூடுமா குறையுமா அப்படிங்கிறத பார்த்தா நம்ம வாங்கணும். So that is a very important point. That's a very important point. இல்ல நான் வாங்குறேன் சார், இப்ப எல்லா ஐபிஓ சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா ஓடுது சார், இன்னைக்கு நான் ஐபிஓ போடுறேன், பை சான்ஸ் இப்ப கேட்ட பை லக் என்னோட நம்பர் டிரா ஆர்டிகல் ஆயிடுச்சு, எனக்கு ஆர்டர் ஆயிடுச்சு அப்படின்னு சொன்னா, அந்த டே ஆஃப் லிஸ்டிங்ல நான் கெயின் புக் பண்ணிட்டு போயிடுறேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்றது என்ன பொறுத்தவரைக்கும் பாத்தீங்கன்னா, இட்ஸ் a very very short term investment strategy which I never advocate to people.
Okay, thank you bro.
So I open the floor for questions from people who are joined through Zoom. They can either raise their hand or unmute themselves and ask the question. They can also use the chat box to give their questions. Of course, there are a couple of questions waiting which have been asked through the YouTube. Probably before we get into Zoom, I'll read out the question for you, Professor.
Yeah.
Mr. Chiddu has asked, sir, can you please explain what is grey market premium that we see in news before the IPO listing? How is it decided? Does high GMP mean anything?
Okay, grey market. Okay. Yeah. So you want to answer now, sir?
Yeah, please.
Okay. See, grey market premium, grey market as such as the name goes. See, is he a Tamil or என்ன?
Sir, you can use your convenience. ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. Anything is fine.
See, grey market அப்படிங்கிறது அது பேர்ல இருக்கு. So we know only white market, black market. Okay, white market means everything is transparent. There is no hide and seek business. Black market means, as you all know, which is banned by the government. I am doing it through a back door, which is absolutely illegal. So grey market ங்கிறது பாத்தீங்கன்னா, it is a kind of midway. பாதி இங்கிட்டு பாதி அங்கிட்டு அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு there is no clear cut thing. So as such பாத்தீங்கன்னா, grey market is not regulated by SEBI. First of all, as such the grey market is not regulated. It is so grey marketல ஒருத்தர்கிட்ட போய் பணம் கொடுத்து ஏமாந்தாலோ அல்லது பணத்தை மேக் பண்ணீங்கனாலோ you cannot put up any such kind of complaints in grievance. You cannot rise to SEBI. First of all, grey market is absolutely unrelated. So the grey market பாத்தீங்கன்னா, இது வந்து it is being done only among the selected set of people. It's only among the selected set of individuals. So it is completely done on the trust basis. Completely done on trust basis. Completely unregulated. Completely unrated. I strongly urge you, don't even look at that. That's my personal opinion. Don't even look at that gray market because that is absolutely unregulated. It runs only with a limited set of people and runs based upon trust.
The next question, sir, again from YouTube, same person. How is the allocation between QIB, HNIs and retail investor decided? Generally, allocation to retail investor is less. Is it to stir common man's emotion so that QIB dumps their shares?
No, it is basically how deep is your pocket. Basically, how deep is your pocket? How many shares you can apply as a retail investor? Maximum 2 lakh rupees. You and me, under the retail investor bucket, we can apply for a maximum of 2 lakh shares. Whereas if you are a QIB, you have a deep pocket. You can go and absorb 50% of the IPO. So that's the ultimate reason. It's not because of you are an individual, so for you only 2%. Nothing like that. See, QIBs, they are meant for investing. QIBs are meant for investing. Their packets are very deep. Then they can invest heavy amount over that. So whereas retail investors, SEBI itself put a limit that you and me can make investment up to 2 lakhs. The moment when you invest beyond 2 lakh, you go into a different bucket. Most of you know that how this IPO process is being done, especially when there is a oversubscription. 40 times oversubscribed, 50 times oversubscribed means, so the shares are being allotted to you, A, on pro rata basis, B, on lottery method. So what is pro rata basis? I asked for 1,000 shares, I will be given 100 shares. Okay, but I got the shares allotted, whereas my friend also applied for 1,000 shares with the same broker, but he got a refund SMS. But I got 100 shares allotted, and for the balance money, I got the refund SMS. Why so? Simply because of lottery. When there's a too much oversubscription, multiple time oversubscription, the shares are being allotted to you on the lottery basis. I repeat, the shares are allotted to you on lottery basis, and they also go with what is called as a pro rata basis. I ask for 1,000 shares, I may get allotted only 100 shares. Somebody asks for 500 shares, he may get a refund SMS. He get one SMS saying that your money is returned to your bank account. So it's all simple luck. So it is nothing to do with retail, HNI or QAB, because those guys, QABs have a deep pocket. So they have the capacity to, absorb those many number of shares. That's the only reason.
Just to add to whatever Professor has said, see, there are two ways by which companies become eligible to come to public. There is one called as a eligibility criteria, where they have to meet certain eligibility norms to come out with a public issue. The other route is called as the QIB route. In that case only, 75% of the issue has to be allotted to QIBs. Only about 15% will be given to retail investors and 10% to the non-institutional category, that is about 2 lakhs. So probably your question probably is answered by that also. Those are regulatory requirements. Right, sir. The next one, I'll take it from Zoom. Mr. Vijay Kumar has asked a question: how to buy shares from the company that is about to go public? Is that space available in Indian market?
No, unless always you know the promoter, you can't buy, sir. Unless always you know the promoter, you can't buy, because about to go public means who is holding shares in such kind of companies? Who is holding shares in such kind of companies? Generally, promoter, people who invested in the early part of the business. People who invested in the early part of business, like PVC firms, they must be holding shares, and they may not be willing to sell it to people like you and me. They will exit predominantly in the IPO route. They don't want to sell it to small quantity to people like us.
Next question from YouTube, sir. Mr. Naveen has asked, what's your view on investment banking career in the upcoming future?
That is an evergreen field. Since I was a student, that was considered as one of the most sought after profession. I hope even today also that's one of the most sought after profession. It is not only in terms of pay. I know most of you know that investment bankers are one of the highly paid professionals in the world. Okay, you only know about that. But the amount of pressure, the amount of you should be willing to bear that. It's not possible for everyone to become an investment banker. But if there is a tremendous scope in the forever, it's a forever demand is there for investment bankers.
Any more questions from people who have connected through Zoom? You can raise your hand so that we can unmute you if necessary, or you can use the chat box. In fact, just to add to what Mr. Nagapan was asking you, specifically related to two recent issues where the lot of concerns were there. Just to name it, Chemplast delisting some years ago at compulsory delisting route, taking away from the people, and again a Nirma Group company, Nuvoco, Nirma going out, again another compulsory delisting and going out, and again coming now at the higher rate, or from the same, let's say from the same promoter stable coming to the market, trying to get investment at a higher valuations. Is it not that being emotional is one thing that is totally different, but if you look at it, is it not that those companies have not given the opportunity for the investors to enjoy the growth in the years that have gone in between?
Yeah, that's true, sir. Morally that is not correct, because in fact, even if you look at the concept of right issue of shares, the reason why right issue has come is I wanted to issue shares first to my shareholders, maybe at a small discount, because I wanted to, because they all helped me at the early part of my IPO. So I wanted to go for instead of going for IPO, I would like to go for right issue. But what you say is correct. We can say maybe from the ethical point of view of the company, that is not correct. But from the law of the land, what they are doing is absolutely correct. Purely from the law of the land, whatever they are doing is absolutely correct. So if you ask me ethically, they are not permitting me for the last 10 years to participate in the growth. Yes, I do agree with you. So ethically not correct, but legally it is correct.
Thank you, sir. So question from Mr. Arogya Swami. In fact, the question was put much earlier. MSCFSL is a 80-plus-year-old company. When are you coming out with a public issue? That is not for Mr. Saravanan to answer. Anyway, hope your question has been put to Mr. Saravanan, Professor Saravanan. And next question is, how can I enhance the chance of getting allotted in an IPO where it is 50x, 100x subscription?
Yeah, I said earlier.
Do you have a secret key for such people?
See, it's only a probability. It's a purely a probability game. So in order to increase your probability, you want to bid at a high price and bid for more quantity. That's the only way out. So it's a probability. I said earlier, நானும் 1000 ஷேர் அப்ளை பண்ணேன், என் ஃப்ரெண்டும் 1000 ஷேர் அப்ளை பண்றாரு. எனக்கு 100 ஷேர்ஸ் தலாட் ஆயிருக்கு, 900 ஷேர்ஸ் ரீஃபண்ட் SMS. என் ஃப்ரெண்டுக்கு பாத்தீங்கன்னா 1000 ஷேர்ஸ்க்கு ரீஃபண்ட் SMS. ஒரே broker ஒரே டைட்டில் ரெண்டு பேரும் அப்ளை பண்ணோம். How? It's a purely by draw, purely by luck, or purely by my application number is being ticked by the computer. It's a pure when especially when it is a oversubscribed. See, nobody can be a part of this IPO allotment process. As most of you know that post IPO company IPO allotment எப்படி பண்ணாங்க அப்படிங்கறத பேப்பர்ல போடுறாங்க. உங்களுக்கு அத பார்த்தாலே you will get a fair amount of idea how the allotment basis was being done. So நம்ம அதிகமா நம்மளோட ப்ராபபிலிட்டி இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணனும்னா we have to bid at a high price, point A. Point B, we have to bid at a high quantity. Maybe HNI பாக்கெட்டுக்குள்ள போனோம்னா கூட நமக்கு கொஞ்சமா அலாட் ஆகிறதுக்கு அட்லீஸ்ட் ப்ரோராட்டா பேசிஸ்ல கொஞ்சம் வாய்ப்பு அதிகம். only probability only we can say. Only probability.
Mr. Manikandan has asked a question.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Professor, see, when the IPO process used to be a very lengthy process those days, if you remember, it's more than a month and a half sometimes. The window open பண்ணி வச்சிருக்கிறது ஒரு 10-15 days இருக்கும். அப்புறம் process பண்றதுக்கு ஒரு 10-15 days allotment, அப்புறம் refund வரதுக்கு. So it used to be almost 1.5-2 months. Now everything is curtailed to about a week or so. Okay, 3-4 days. 3 days is the issue, and another 3 days allotment is known, maybe maximum of 1 week, 10 days, which is a very good welcome change. We have come a long way from there. But you tell me, when we have offer for sale of already listed companies happening online, in the secondary market itself, why don't we have the IPO also online itself? Where maybe the promoter can dump all the shares in the first 1 hour and see what is the weighted average price, and people can buy. The allotment can happen instantly, the trade can happen, and same day evening the shares can go to the respective investor's account. So why do we go through this underwriting, a big system of funding and margin fund, all those things? Just there is a secondary market which is available. You have a product or a company or a share to sell. There are buyers. It's a market is a meeting point for both. Why don't we have it, or what is your take on it?
See, I don't know whether you dump all the shares in the market, whether the market has the capacity to absorb or not, we don't know. ஒரே நாள்ல வந்து அவரை ப்ரொமோட் வந்து அவருடைய 20% ஷேரை டம்ப் பண்ணாருன்னா மார்க்கெட்டுக்கு கெப்பாசிட்டி இருக்குமா அப்சர்வ் பண்றதுங்கிறதுக்கு ஒரு பெரிய கொஸ்டின் மார்க். ஸோ அதனாலதான் பாத்தீங்கன்னா இப்ப மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் த ஐபிஓஸ் யூ மஸ்ட் அப்சர்விங் த ட்ரெண்ட். இப்ப மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் த ஐபிஓஸ் தே ஆர் கமிங் வித் தி புக் பில்டிங் ரூட். ஸோ மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் யூ நோ தட் நம்ம வந்து ஃபிக்ஸட் பிரைஸ் மெத்தட் ஒன்று இருக்கு, புக் பில்டிங் ரூட்னு ஒன்று இருக்கு. ஃபிக்ஸட் பிரைஸ்னா கம்பெனி சொல்லுவான் 10 ரூபா ஃபேஸ் வேல்யூ, என்னோட 60 ரூபா, டேக் இட் ஆர் லீவ் இட், நோ நெகோசியேஷன். வேற சில கம்பெனி புக் பில்டிங்னா ஃபேஸ் வேல்யூ 10 ரூபாய், பட் நான் உனக்கு வந்து 60 ரூபாய் மினிமம், அதிகபட்சம் 65 ரூபாய், என்ன ரேட் நீ கோட் பண்ணிக்கோ, லைக் த மார்க்கெட் கேன் டிசைன் சொல்றான் புக் பில்டிங் மெத்தட். So இப்போ பாத்தீங்கன்னா most of the companies are coming through the book building route. They wanted to put the onus on the market. Let the market can decide what could be the better rate for me. Better price is let the market can do. I don't want to fix the price on a fixed price offer method. So முக்காவாசி கம்பெனி பாத்தீங்கன்னா 98% of the companies they are coming into the book building method தான் வர்றாங்க. So what they try to do, they put the onus on the market. They give a price range. In the range எங்க வேணாலும் நீ bid பண்ணிக்கோ. They give a price range and you bid at this particular number and bid அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. So I doubt on a single day when the company dump all the shares in the market, I'm doubtful whether the market has the capacity to absorb that on a single day.
But most of the time, நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா first 1 hourல it is already subscribed twice, already subscribed thrice. This is what is coming. Correct. So that is one thing. But anyway, the price band இருக்குல்ல market, that is becoming a farce. They're giving only a very narrow band of 2 rupees and 3 rupees and all, and invariably it gets bidded at the highest price and it is oversubscribed 10 times, 15 times, 90 times and all those things. That is why I said if it is an open market system where the bidding happens, there will be a weighted average. Like, end of the day between 3 and 3:30, we have a weighted average thing, which happens in the post closing. Apart from the one challenge could be that, like you said, ஒரே நாள் எல்லாத்தையும் வித்துற முடியுமா உன்னால அந்த ஒரு இதுல, will you get exposed or whatever it is, but it will also be more transparent and open. There is no demand for the share at that price, it will be known immediately. I don't know. So but apart from that, I don't see any constraint. Is there a technical constraint, anything else there? I don't know.
That's is what I felt, sir. Nothing beyond. And to answer your other aspect about the price band range, what SEBI என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா 20% gap maximum எடுக்கலாம்னு சொல்றாங்க. Suppose நான் 100 rupees போட்டா அப்படின்னா lower end high 100 ரூபாய், high end 120 ரூபாய் வரைக்கும் கேட்கலாம். They suggested 20% range. But what you said is absolutely correct. Most of the companies பாத்தீங்கன்னா price band ரொம்ப குட்டியா வச்சிருக்காங்க. Difference 60 ரூபாய் 65 ரூபாய். So அப்ப நம்ம எல்லாருமே 65 ரூபாய் போய் bid பண்றோம். So all the people are bidding only at 65. And the price band range பாத்தீங்கன்னா no company is giving you the range of 20%. If you observe for the last 3 years data.
Yeah.
Professor Swaminathan here.
Yes.
I have a question. See, generally I find the subscription, oversubscribed, etc. is a function of the person who is underwriting the share. So what happens is the underwriters play a very vital role in the shares being subscribed.
Exactly correct. Yeah.
In the eventual, who is rating these underwriters? See, now what's happening is I'm saying this will go, Zomato is going like this. Tomorrow, as you said initially, one share which came in 2013 and it has come down very badly. See, do we not have any governance for these underwriters?
Sir, that's a very good question, sir. அதாவது இப்ப underwriters பார்த்தாங்க அப்படின்னா அவங்க நம்ம credit rating agency மாதிரி. If I'm not doing justice, நான் ஒரு பேட் கம்பெனி நான் வந்து அண்டர்ரைட் பண்ணேன் அப்படின்னா my image in the market will go down. அடுத்த வாட்டி எங்கிட்ட யாரும் வர மாட்டாங்க. So அதனால these companies are generally I'm speaking, exceptions will be there. Generally these companies are very cautious. ஏன்னா இதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா லாட் ஆஃப் லிட்டரேச்சர் இருக்கு. என்னோட ஸ்டூடெண்ட் கூட இதுல PhD பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு. ஸோ அதாவது வந்து அண்டர்ரைட்டர்ஸுக்கும் யார் உங்க கம்பெனி ஷேர் அண்டர்ரைட்டர் பண்றா அப்படிங்கிறதுக்கும் சக்சஸ் ஆஃப் ஐபிஓக்கு என்ன கனெக்ட் இருக்கா அப்படின்னு பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு. அதுல ஹி ஸ்டடி லாட் ஆஃப் கம்பெனிஸ். ஸோ வெஸ்டர்ன் வேர்ல்ட்ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா there's a strong connect. இப்ப அண்டர்ரைட்டரோட அல்டிமேட் அப்ஜெக்டிவ் என்னன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, எப்படியாவது உங்க ஷேருக்கு மார்க்கெட்ல ஹைப்பை ஏற்படுத்தி அந்த ஐபிஓ வர்றதுக்கு ஒரு மாசத்துக்கு முன்னாடியே உங்க கம்பெனி பத்தி நியூஸ் டெய்லி எக்கனாமிக் டைம்ஸ்லயோ ஏதாவது நியூஸ் பேப்பர்ல தினசரி வந்துட்டே இருக்கும். So that news will keep on ringing at the back of your mind about the name of the company. So அப்படி இருக்கும்போது அந்த கம்பெனி ஐபிஓ பார்த்தா you are tempted to apply for that IPO of that particular company. So இப்ப நான் ஒரு பேட் கம்பெனியை ப்ரொமோட் பண்ணேன் as underwriter அப்படின்னா my image will get tarnished in the market. So அடுத்த வாட்டி வந்து என்னால பண்ண முடியாது. So it's only a market only drives. யாரு வந்து ரொம்ப நியாயமா இருக்காங்க இல்ல அப்படிங்கறத market only determines. Mind there is a competition among the different investment bankers. Then I'll be kicked out of the market.
I agree, but how many people remember these underwriters? Na? See, the problem is we have very few underwriters in this country. And most of the underwriters are backed by multinational banks or some leading financial institutions.
Correct.
People hardly remember this issue was underwritten by this company, it went bad, etc., etc. One more question connected with this. We should also bring in an enactment. I do not want to name the company. When you buy back a share at a less price some year, then such company should not come for public issue at least for 10 to 20 years they should do.
Couple of more questions, sir. Mr. Manikandan has asked, QAB, NII, retail investor decided by company. Just to make your job easy, yeah, there are some regulatory requirements, which, as I told you, 2 criteria by which they go through that. Based on that only it is decided. Next question, if we did not get allotment, how to control our emotion and take decision at the time of listing? So, class on behavioral finance.
இல்ல அதுக்கு எதுக்கு சார் எமோஷன் ஆறீங்க? Why do you get emotion?
அவர் எமோஷன் எப்படி கண்ட்ரோல் பண்றதுன்னு கேக்குறாரு.
நீங்க அப்ளை பண்றீங்க, நமக்கு அலாட் ஆகற அந்த டே ஆஃப் லிஸ்டிங் வந்து it hitting the sky. என்ன பண்ண நமக்கு லக் இல்ல அவ்வளவு விட்டு போக வேண்டியதான். சோ அத பத்தி நம்ம worry பண்ணக்கூடாது. Then you pick up some other stocks. உங்க போர்ட்ஃபோலியோக்கு மேட்ச் ஆகிற மாதிரி வேற ஸ்டாக் பார்த்து பிக்கப் பண்ணுங்க. சோ அது நமக்கு அலாட் ஆகல அப்படின்னா இட்ஸ் கான். சோ there is no merit of worrying on that. அத நம்ம கிடைக்கல நம்ம வருத்தப்பட worry பண்ணாதீங்க. You just go ahead and look for some other companies. அவ்வளவுதான்.
Next question from Sahana. Sir, for the beginner, where should I start? Sir, should I decide a portfolio first or should I go into the flow of market? That is to invest at the companies having great potential. But if you go on for the later, the investment probably will be priced high. As a student, we are limited in funds, sir. Your advice, please.
See, okay, very good question. See, first of all, you do some mock trading. Don't invest your real money. Okay, there are many websites or many platforms where which they give you some funding of 10 lakh or something. முதல்ல ஒரு mock trade பண்ணுங்க. You try a mock trade. So அதுல வந்து you will get a hang of it. How to buy, how to sell. So that's a very important point. How to sell is also a very important point. You will get tons and tons of material on how to buy. You won't get any material on how to sell or when to sell. Okay, you should know when to buy, when to sell also, which we call market timing of the market. So being a student, I advise strongly to look at some of the mock trading websites. You look at some of the mock trading websites, you invest an imaginary money and gain confidence. When the confidence on the cover, then you can start investing your actual money. That's what I generally recommend my students over here.
Good. Nice that students are participating in the webinar and taking valuable advice from you, sir. Best wishes to the students. Next question, basis of allotment is normally not declared. Where can we find that?
So basis of allotment is declared. It's a flash in the newspaper or only Mr. Narapan has answered this question.
Yeah. About IRFC IPO.
Yeah, same apply. Whatever we discussed, you apply to that IPO and then check is it holding true or not.
So do we have higher probability of allotment if we apply for upper price band?
Yeah, upper price band and higher quantity. It's not only price, but also quantity matters. But also higher quantity you want to apply. Then only the probability of getting the shares allotted to you is more.
Just one clarification there. It's a nitty-gritty which many of us miss it. That's why I just wanted to make it a point. Suppose if the price band is 15 rupees to 18 rupees and somebody applies at 18 rupees and somebody also applies at price cutoff. normally they treat cutoff as a better price. In spite of somebody applying at 18 rupees, cutoff is treated better. So I think that is something which the investor should keep in mind.
Next question from Dhanalakshmi. If I miss the IPO, is it a good choice to buy the same in the market on date of listing?
You look at your own valuation. Look at your own valuation. If it is available at that number, if you still feel that it is worth buying and adding into your existing portfolio, then only you can buy. See, whenever you buy a share and add it into your portfolio, keep in mind the very basic philosophy of investment. By adding that share into my portfolio, whether my overall portfolio risk is coming down or not. That's the question you want to ask. It's not because of that's an emerging business, I should not lose out that. No. Okay. So please look at that parameter.
Next question from Mr. Ganesh Ram. Can anyone scuttle the IPO allotment process? Because for the last 6 months, I didn't get allotment, which is very strange and irrational.
Sir, I told already, இது வந்து உங்களோட பியூர் லக்கு. ஏன்னா இப்போ வந்து 40 தடவை 50 தடவை வந்து உங்களுக்கு ஓவர் சப்ஸ்கிரைப் ஆகி போகும்பொழுது, ஸோ வாட் த கம்பெனிஸ் வில் டு ஆல்ரெடி நார்மல் சார் சொல்லிட்டார் எப்படி அலாட்மெண்ட் பண்றாங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. அலாட்மெண்ட் இஸ் டன் ஆன் ப்ரோ ரேட்டா பேசிஸ். ப்ரோ ரேட்டா பேசிஸ்னா இப்போ இந்த ரீட்டைல் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸுக்கு 10% இருக்கு, 15% தான் இருக்கு டோட்டல் நம்பர் ஆஃப் ஷேர்ஸ்ல, 15 ஷேர் இருக்கு. ஆனா 150 பேர் லைன்ல நிக்கிறான், எனக்கு ஷேர் வாங்க கொடுங்க, பணத்தை கட்டிட்டான் ஆல்ரெடி. எப்படி கொடுப்பீங்க? உங்க கையில இருக்கிறதோ 15 ஷேர், 150 பேர் பணத்தை கட்டிட்டான் ஆல்ரெடி, உங்ககிட்ட ஷேர் வேணும் எனக்குன்னு கேட்கறான், எப்படி கொடுப்பீங்க நீங்க? எப்படி 1:10 ரேஷியோ கொடுங்க. 10 ஷேர் கேட்டவனுக்கு ஒரு ஷேர், மீதி எக்ஸ்ட்ரா பணத்தை அப்புறம் அவர் ரீஃபண்ட் பண்ணிடுவாங்க. சோ இதுவும் மல்டிபிள் டைம்ஸ் இருக்கு அப்படின்னு சொன்னா எல்லாத்துக்கும் அலாட்மெண்ட் பண்றது பதிலா ரேண்டமா அலாட்மெண்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க. So purely lottery basis they allot it. Everything is done by computer. So there is no bias. Even the promoter வந்து எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச ஒரு அப்ளை பண்ணிருக்காரு கொடுங்கன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. It's a completely different set of people who run this show.
Sahana has raised her hand. You can go ahead and ask your question, please.
She has asked a question. Aதாவது
sorry, my hand previously. You answered mine, sir.
Yeah, okay. I've already answered through the chat. Ask the question through the chat. Okay, good. Ms. Naman, please go ahead.
No. She asked about portfolio. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay, right. We're just in the chat. Can you brief what is underwriter? Tamil.
இல்ல அண்டர்ரைட்டர்ங்கிறது யாருன்னு கேட்டீங்கன்னா சார், அவர் வந்து உங்க ஷேரை வித்து கொடுக்கறதுக்கு கேரண்டி கொடுப்பாரு. அதாவது இப்ப பாத்தீங்கன்னா இப்ப உள்ள கரண்ட் கம்பெனி ஆக்டோட ரூல் என்னன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, எந்த கம்பெனி ஐபிஓக்கு வந்தாலும் குறைஞ்சபட்சம் 90% டிமாண்ட் இருக்கணும் மக்கள் மத்தியில அந்த ஐபிஓக்கு. அப்பனாதான் அவங்க ஐபிஓ ரோல் அவுட் பண்ண முடியும். பை சான்ஸ் அவங்களுக்கு வந்து அந்த டிமாண்ட் மார்க்கெட்ல இல்ல அப்படின்னா அவங்க ஐபிஓ ரோல் பேக் பண்ணணும். சோ அந்த மாதிரி யாருமே ரிஸ்க் எடுக்க விரும்ப மாட்டாங்க. இப்போ அவ்வளவு எஃபர்ட் போட்டு மார்க்கெட் வரைக்கும் வந்து சக்சஸ் ஆக போகணும்னு விரும்ப மாட்டாங்க. அதுதான் என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னு கேட்டீங்கன்னா, மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் ஐபிஓ பீப்புள் வந்து அண்டர்ரைட்டர்னு ஒருத்தர் இருப்பாரு. இந்த அண்டர்ரைட்டரோட ஜாப் என்னன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, உங்க ஷேரை பூரா எப்படியாவது வித்து கொடுத்துருவாரு மக்கள் மத்தியில. எப்படியாவது டபுள் ரன் வித்தின் கோட் எப்படியாதுங்கிறத அண்டர்லைன் பண்ணிக்கோங்க. அதை எப்படியாவது எல்லாமே நியாயமான வழியில தான். நோ எவ்ரிதிங் இஸ் வித்தின் த ஆஸ் பர் த லா. என்ன பண்ணுவாரு, உங்க கம்பெனி நீங்க ஐபிஓ மார்க்கெட்டுக்கு வர்றதுக்கு முன்னாடியே ஒரு 6 மாசத்துக்கு முன்னாடியே உங்க கம்பெனி பத்தி நியூஸ் டெய்லி நியூஸ் பேப்பர்ல வரும். உங்க கம்பெனியை பத்தி ரோட் ஷோ போடுவார், இந்த கம்பெனி நல்ல கம்பெனி அப்படின்னு சொல்லி போடுவார். அவர் எப்படியாவது உங்க கம்பெனியை நல்லா ப்ரொமோட் பண்ணி வித்து கொடுக்க வேண்டியது அவரோட கடமை. அதுக்கு அவரு அந்த கம்பெனி கிட்ட இருந்து சம் பர்சன்டேஜ் கமிஷன் வாங்கிப்பார். ஃப்ரீயா பண்ண மாட்டாரு, அந்த கம்பெனி இருந்து கமிஷன் வாங்கிக்கிறார். பை சான்ஸ் அவர் ரொம்ப பெஸ்ட் எஃபர்ட் போடுறாரு. ஆனா மார்க்கெட் வந்து நம்ம டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ண மாதிரி மார்க்கெட் மூடு வேற மாதிரி இருக்கு. அது வந்து மார்க்கெட் என்ன சொல்லுதுன்னா 90% சப்ஸ்கிரைப் ஆகாத 85 தான் சப்ஸ்கிரைப் ஆயிருக்கு. அப்ப நமக்கு 90 இருந்தாதான் ஐபிஓ ஃப்ளோட் பண்ண முடியும். அப்ப இந்த அண்டர்ரைட்டர் என்ன பண்றாரு, அவர் வந்து பேலன்ஸ் ஷேர்ஸ் வந்து அவர் சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணிக்கிறார். அவரே பணம் கொடுத்து வாங்கிக்கிறார். அதனால அண்டர்ரைட்டரோட ரோல் வந்து ரொம்ப முக்கியம். ஏன்னா அண்டர்ரைட்டர் வந்து நம்ம கம்பெனியை அண்டர்ரைட் பண்ணி அதை மார்க்கெட்ல விற்காட்டி பை சான்ஸ் அவரே தான் விற்காத ஷேரை போல வாங்கணும். சோ அதுக்காக என்ன பண்ணலாம்னு கேட்டீங்கன்னா, அண்டர்ரைட்டர் அந்த கம்பெனி அண்டர்ரைட் பண்றதுக்கு முன்னாடியே இது நல்ல கம்பெனியா, இது ஒர்த்தா, நம்ம இதை வந்து ரோட் ஷோ கொண்டு போலாமா, வித்துருமா, மார்க்கெட் மூடு எப்படி இருக்கு, ரொம்ப முக்கியம். மார்க்கெட் மூடு இப்ப எப்படி இருக்கு, இப்போ ஐபிஓ போட்டா விக்குமா மார்க்கெட்ல, ஜெனரல் மார்க்கெட் மைண்ட் செட் எப்படி இருக்கு, இதெல்லாம் ஸ்டடி பண்ணுவாங்க. இதெல்லாம் ஸ்டடி பண்ணிட்டு தென் தே வில் கம் அண்ட் டூ திஸ் ஒன் ஃபார் த கம்பெனி. என்ன ரொம்ப சிம்பிளா சொல்லியிருக்கேன் உங்களுக்கு, பெரிய ப்ராசஸ் இது, கொஞ்சம் சிம்பிளா சொல்லியிருக்கேன் நான் உங்களுக்கு.
Next question from Mr. Dhanapalan. Sir, who is designing the share lot size for the retail investors?
All investment bankers in consultation with SEBI. Lot size, அதாவது price band எல்லாமே டிசைட் பண்றது இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் பேங்கர்ஸ் தான். சோ இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் பேங்கர்ஸ் தான் முதல்ல சொன்னேன், புக் ரன்னிங் லீட் மேனேஜர்ஸ் சொன்னாங்க உங்களுக்கு. BRLM நீங்க எனி IPO ப்ராஸ்பெக்டஸ் எடுத்து பாருங்க, அதுல வந்து உங்களுக்கு BRLM அப்படின்னு போட்டு ஒரு 6 கம்பெனி பேர் போட்டிருப்போம், அது 3-4 கம்பெனி பேராவது இருக்கும். புக் ரன்னிங் லீட் மேனேஜர்ஸ் இவங்க தான் வந்து they are the brain behind the IPO. இவங்களுக்கு கீழே பாத்தீங்கன்னா there is a big team, பெரிய டீம் ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டு இருப்பாங்க. இந்த IPO அப்படிங்கிறது நாகப்பன் சார் சொன்ன மாதிரி இன்னைக்கு நினைச்சு நாளைக்கு மார்க்கெட் வர முடியாது. ஐ ரிப்பீட், இன்னைக்கு நான் IPO பண்ண போறேன்னு நினைச்சு நாளைக்கு மார்க்கெட் வர முடியாது. நீங்க 1 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடியே இந்த ப்ராசஸ் ஆரம்பிக்கணும். 1 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடி இந்த ப்ராசஸ் ஆரம்பிச்சு நிறைய ரெகுலேட்டரி கம்ப்ளைண்ட்ஸ் இருக்கு, நிறைய லீகல் கம்ப்ளைண்ட்ஸ் இருக்கு. நீங்க IPO பண்றதுக்கு முன்னாடியே நீங்க BSE கிட்டையும் NSE கிட்டையும் லிஸ்டிங் அக்ரிமெண்ட் போட்டு நான் இன்னைக்கு டேட்ல IPO முடியுது, இன்னைக்கு டேட்ல லிஸ்டிங் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு அவங்க கிட்ட அதுக்கான டாக்குமெண்ட் அப்புறம் கொடுத்து லிஸ்டிங் அக்ரிமெண்ட் போட்டு லிஸ்டிங் ஃபீஸை பே பண்ணி அது ஒரு பெரிய ப்ராசஸ். சோ நம்ம IPOக்கு வரலாம் அப்படின்னா அந்த கம்பெனி 1 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடியே அதை பத்தி ப்ராசஸ் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணிடுவாங்க. சப்போஸ் நான் வந்து ஒரு 7-star ஹோட்டல் கட்டணும்னு நினைக்கிறேன், ஆனா எனக்கு இந்த பத்திர ஒரு ஐடியாவே இல்லை, இத்தனை ப்ராசஸ் இருக்கா சார் தெரியல அப்படின்னா என்ன பண்றேன், இந்த புக் ரன்னிங் லீட் மேனேஜர் போய் பிடிக்கிறேன். எனக்கு என்னோட வியாபாரத்தை பத்தி எனக்கு நல்லா தெரியா, எனக்கு மக்கள்கிட்ட எப்படி பணம் ரைஸ் பண்றது தெரியாது, கொஞ்சம் எனக்கு ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுனா புக் ரன்னிங் லீட் மேனேஜர் ஓகே சார் நான் உங்களுக்கு ஹெல்ப் பண்றேன், எவ்வளவு பணம் ரைஸ் பண்ண போறீங்க, ஒரு 5000 கோடி, ஓகே எனக்கு 1.5% கமிஷன் கொடுத்துருங்க சார், நான் எல்லாம் பண்ணி கொடுத்துறேன் லீகலா எல்லாமே ப்ளீஸ் பி நோட்டட். சோ அவர் வந்து நான் அடுத்த வருஷம் IPO வர்றதுக்கான வரக்கான எல்லா பேப்பர் டாக்குமெண்ட், செபி கம்ப்ளைண்ட்ஸ், NSE BSE லிஸ்டிங் அக்ரிமெண்ட், வேற என்னென்ன லீகல் ப்ராசஸ் இருக்கோ அவர் எல்லாமே எனக்காக பார்த்து கொடுத்துருவார். அல்டிமேட்லி நான் என்ன பண்ணணும், 5000 கோடி ரூபாய் அவர் எனக்கு மார்க்கெட் ரைஸ் பண்ணி கொடுத்தாருன்னா நான் அவருக்கு 1.5% கமிஷன் கொடுத்தா போகும், அவ்வளவுதான். தட்ஸ் ஆல். சோ தே டு ஆல் த ஒர்க் ஃபார் மீ, புக் ரன்னிங் லீட் மேனேஜர்ஸ். சோ அவங்க கிட்ட தான் இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் பேங்கர்ஸ் இருக்காங்க, அவங்க தான் அண்டர்ரைட்டர்ஸ் அப்பாயின்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க, சாரி அவங்க தான் ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரார் டு இஷ்யூ அப்பாயின்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க, அவங்க தான் சொலிசிட்டர் அப்பாயின்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க. இனிஷியல் ஃபேஸ்ல they are the legal face of the company. Initial part of IPO they are the legal face of the company. அவங்க தான் கம்பெனிக்கு பதிலா எல்லாரையும் கோஆர்டினேட் பண்ணுவாங்க. So they are called book running lead managers.
Just to add to whatever professor has said, who is deciding அப்படினா there is a regulatory requirement, minimum lot size வந்து close to 15,000 rupees வர மாதிரி பாத்துக்கங்க அப்படிங்கிறது ஒரு செபி requirement. ஒரு லாட் அப்படிங்கிறது அட்லீஸ்ட் 15,000 ரூபாய்க்கு பக்கத்துல வர மாதிரி அந்த லாட் சைஸை ஃபிக்ஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. டிபெண்டிங் ஆன் தி பிரைஸ் பேண்ட், அட் த அப்பர் வேல்யூ ஆஃப் த பிரைஸ் பேண்ட் இத்தனை நம்பர் ஆஃப் ஷேர் போட்டால் 15,000 ரூபாய்க்குள்ள வர்ற மாதிரி வரணுங்கிறது ஒரு ரெக்குயர்மெண்ட். அண்ட் நெக்ஸ்ட் கொஸ்டின் சார் ஃப்ரம் மிஸ்டர் கணபதி ராம், 13 lakh, if somebody applies for 13 lots, does he get a better chance than in case of a over subscription?
இல்ல சார், நீங்க வந்து பார்க்கணும். see அந்த 13 lakh நீங்க போடுங்க 2 lakhs கேட்டகரியில வர்றீங்களா, 2 lakhsனா up to 2 lakhs ரீட்டைல் இன்வெஸ்டர்லாம் நம்ம வந்து 2 lakh கேட்டகரி வரையலாம் வரும். அப்ப ரீட்டைல் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ்க்கு ஒரு 10% தான் அலாட்மெண்ட் இருக்கும், ஒரு 15 ஷேர் வச்சுக்கோங்க டு மேக் இட் சிம்பிள். ஆனா அந்த ரீட்டைல் இன்வெஸ்டர் கேட்டகரியில 1500 பேர் போய் நிற்கிறான், எனக்கு வேணும் ஷேர் கேட்கறான். அப்ப கம்பெனி கிட்ட இருக்கிறதே 15 ஷேர் தான், ஆனா 1500 பேர் போய் டோரை தட்டிட்டு இருக்கான், எனக்கு அலாட் பண்ணுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு. சோ அப்ப கம்பெனி என்ன பண்ணும், இந்த 1500 பேருக்கு அலாட் பண்றது நாட் பாசிபிள். அப்ப என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா ரேண்டமா சூஸ் பண்ணி கொடுப்பாங்க. நீ 15 கேட்டையா, 15 கொடுக்க முடியாது உனக்கு, இந்த உனக்கு இவ்வளவுதான் 10 தான். நீ 100 கேட்டையா, உனக்கு 2 தான். அந்த மாதிரி கொஞ்சம் ப்ரோ ரேட்டா பேசிஸ்ல இந்த கம்பெனி வில் அலாட் த ஷேர்ஸ். அப்ப 15 ஷேருக்கு 1500 பேர் கியூல நின்னாங்க அப்படின்னா அதுல எல்லாருக்குமே அலாட் ஆகும்னு சொல்ல முடியாது, அதுல எல்லாருக்குமே அலாட் ஆக முடியாது. அதனால என்னன்னு சொல்லி கேட்டீங்கன்னா நிறைய பேருக்கு ரீஃபண்ட் SMS வரும். ரீஃபண்ட் பணம் வந்து நமக்கு அலாட்மெண்ட் ப்ராசஸ் முடிஞ்ச உடனே முதல்ல நாகப்பஞ்சாயத்து மாதிரி ரொம்ப காலம் எடுத்துக்கும். இப்ப வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா 4 நாள்ல உங்களுக்கு SMS வந்துருது, உங்க மணி இஸ் கிரெடிட்டட் இன்டு யுவர் பேங்க் அக்கௌண்ட் அப்படின்னு. ஓகேங்களா? அதனால வந்து இட் இஸ் ரொம்ப நம்ம வந்து ஓவர் சப்ஸ்கிரிப்ஷன் மல்டிபிள் டைம்ஸ் இருக்கும் பொழுது ஷேர் அலாட்மெண்ட் ஆகிறது வந்து இட் இஸ் பியூர்லி எ லக், ஐ கேன் சே தட்.
Next question, what is the preferential issue for an IPO?
Preferential issue கேட்டீங்கன்னா ஃபார் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ் ஆங்கர் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் இருக்காங்க. ஆங்கர் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் யாருன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு நாளைக்கு முன்னாடியே ப்ரிஃபரன்ஷியல், அவங்களுக்கு ஆக்சுவல் அலாட்மெண்ட்டுக்கு முன்னாடியே ஆங்கர் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ்க்கு ஒரு ப்ரிஃபரன்ஷியல் பேசிஸ் தான் அலாட் பண்ணுவாங்க. எதுக்காக ஆங்கர் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்றாங்கன்னா ஆங்கர் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் வந்து நம்ம மாதிரி இல்ல, தே பை இன் பல்க் குவான்டிட்டி, தே ஹேவ் a deep packet. சோ அப்ப ஆங்கர் இன்வெஸ்டர்ஸ் வாங்குறாங்க அப்படின்னா that's send a signal to the market, that's send a signal to the market, so this stock is worth so much worth. So generally preferential allotment யாருன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா anchor investors அந்த மாதிரி people they do the preferential allotment just 1 or 2 days before the IPO process. So அந்த நியூஸோ மார்க்கெட்ல ஃபிளாஷ் ஆகும். So and so கம்பெனில so and so anchor investor இவ்வளவு இன்வெஸ்ட் பண்ணிருக்காரு அப்படிங்கிற நியூ இன்ஃபர்மேஷனும் நமக்கு வந்து ஃபிளாஷ் ஆகும். ஆனா anchor investors வந்து இந்த பிரைஸ் பேண்ட்லாம் கிடையாது, ஒரே ஃபிக்ஸட் ரேட் தான் இருக்கு. Anchor investor just buy at a fixed price, but he will buy in bulk quantity. So அவர் வந்து the preferential issuer category வருவார் அவர்.
One more question from YouTube, sir. What if the company does not use the money as promised in the IPO and use it as they wish? Is there any legal binding to use for the purpose they have quoted?
Okay, நீங்க வந்து Ministry of Finance வெப்சைட்டுக்கு போங்க, Department of Company Affairs வெப்சைட் இருக்கு. அதோட ஹோம் பேஜ்ல போனீங்கன்னா ஒரு blinking ஐகான் ஒன்று இருக்கும். அதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா vanished companies list ஒன்று இருக்கு. vanished companies list. இதே மாதிரி ஐபிஓக்கு வந்து மக்கள் கிட்ட பணத்தை கலெக்ட் பண்ணிட்டு ஓவர் நைட் காசை வந்து ஓடி போயிட்டான். சோ அந்த மாதிரி கம்பெனிஸ் இருக்கு. பட் இப்போ வந்து அந்த மாதிரி வேனிஷிங் கம்பெனிஸ் அந்த அளவுக்கு இல்லை. ஐ மீன் இப்போ இருக்கு, பட் கம்பேரிட்டிவ்லி குறைஞ்சிருச்சு. இப்போ கம்பேரிட்டிவ்லி குறைஞ்சிருச்சு பிகாஸ் இப்போ லா வந்து கொஞ்சம் ரிஜிட்.
Mr. Ashok Mutha, you can go ahead and ask your question, sir, from the MSc FSL family. You have raised your hand. You can unmute yourself and ask your question, Mr. Ashok Mutha. Yeah.
I lost the connection. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
See, about some 10 years back, there was something called anybody who applied got at least 1 or 2 shares when the CCI was there, controller of capital issues. So something can be worked out on those lines.
Sir, imagine you have 15 shares in your hand for retail investors. Okay. There are 1,500 people outside your door knocking at your door. I want shares. How do you allot, sir?
So what we are saying, the total number of shares by the total number of investors you applied, give everybody one share each at least.
So that's what I'm saying. You have only 15 shares reserved for retail investors. Only 15 shares. But there are 1,500 shares. There's a demand from the market.
Can you take something from the QI?
No, sir, it is not possible to do it from QIP. How do you know beforehand? How do you know whether a retail?
Ultimately, the market is for the investors, not for the QIPs.
Sir, can I answer that, Professor?
Please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So when CCI was there, you are right. The issues were coming at par value also.
Yes.
So today I am holding 2,500 shares of PAC Food and 3,000 shares of I think I forgot the name of that company. Sundar knows that. Topper Milk Products. Okay. So like this, I have a bundle of 3,000, 2,000, 5,000, about 10 or 12 certificates when CCI was there, when it was coming at 10 rupees. Now no CCI and all the shares are coming at a premium and allotment is very scarce. But whatever allotment comes, the prices are multiplying much more than that in many cases. Some cases it is coming down. See, the point is somebody owns the share and it is his product. He is entitled to sell it at whatever price he wants. It is up to you and me to apply or not to apply. I never apply for IPO. I didn't want to say this, I'm telling you. I never apply for IPO basically because if it is a good IPO, you don't get allotment because everybody apply for it. If you get an allotment, normally it is a bad IPO. It is devolved on you. Generally, by and large, this is what happens. And and another problem with IPO is that there is only one seller and so many buyers. So it is a skewed market. In the secondary market, you have as many number of buyers, as many number of sellers. Both are there. Sometimes it may go up and down, but by and large, there are no restrictions. In primary market, there is only 1 or 2 sellers. So this is why I normally avoid, but I cannot tell this to everyone. But you have to understand that somebody owns that company. It is his product and he has got every right. SEBI has got no rule to interfere in pricing it. That's all.
See,
No. The issue involved here is who decided that retail investors should get only 10%?
No, sir. I'll tell you what. Again, that is a misunderstanding. Retail investors get 35%. Sundar, confirm?
There are 2 routes.
Yeah.
So one is the eligibility route, where the company qualifies based on the eligibility criteria, based on the net worth, their profit and other things are there. Based on that, they come under the eligibility criteria. In that case, retail investor allotment will be 35%.
Yeah.
There is a other route which is called as the QIB route, where 75% has to be allotted to QIB. So that gives the reassurance. They may not qualify under any of those eligibility criteria. They come to the market because they will be able to convince the QIBs, and 75% of the allotment can be placed to the QIBs, which means that only 10% is available for non-institutional investors and 15% available for the retail investor. So these are the generally two categories. Let us not confuse the company which is coming under the eligibility criteria with which is going through the QIB route. Those are two different types of issues.
But it is not restricted to 15%. It can be more than 15% also. 15%.
Yeah, in the first case, in the eligibility case, it will be as high as 35%.
35%, yeah.
Yeah. If it is a QIB, if it is a QIB route, it is 15% only.
Otherwise, 35% minimum is given to them.
Yes.
35% minimum is given to whom? Public or QIB?
I don't know. Retail, sir, small.
Retail.
Sir, QIB is also public. They are not some non-public, but they are also public. Retail, small investors up to 2 lakhs, they are given 35% minimum. It is not maximum 35%, it is minimum 35%.
Yes.
See, what I'm trying to highlight is the legal analogy you understand.
Yeah.
Banks at their will allot to QIB. Okay. Sometimes they do private equity placement or everything. That time retail investors are not given anything. Okay.
That is a choice of the company, sir.
Choice of the company, correct. Choice of the company is correct. What we are saying, when SEBI has invaded through a legislation, and at some places they keep 15 or 25% for the retail public, ultimately the focus is to spread the market. So when the focus is to spread the market, you can always cut the pie of the QIB and give it to the market, no?
Sir, what is the guarantee that all the retail investors will participate in the IPO? You tell me that. What is the guarantee that when you cut the pie and give it to retail investor, what is the assurance that all the retail investors will subscribe to that percentage?
That is what you are seeing on oversubscription, no?
That is the trend that we are seeing off late. That's the trend that we are seeing off late. There's a large number of retail investors' participation in the capital market, especially in the primary market. That is off late.
Thank you.
There is a trend. See,
Thank you, sir.
when the trend was there, that the shares were rising abruptly, BSE introduced that new circular. Did they introduce for last 18 months? They didn't introduce. Now the trend is everything is getting subscribed. The regulation should come to protect the investors, no?
Sir, your views are taken.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
We will move on to the next question.
You will write to SEBI. Your thoughts will be communicated to them.
Yeah. There is a question from Charanya through YouTube. Is it compulsory to go only through Underwriter? What if the companies are well known and they do not need the services of Underwriter for publicizing the IPO?
Generally, companies don't want to take risk. Company will be a well-known company. So when they come to the market, you only may not buy it. So generally, in order to avoid risk, they 100% they engage underwriters. It's very rare to see companies coming to the market without underwriter.
Next question from Maha. What is your view on current market? Is it good to sit with cash rather than entering the market this time? Sensex at 55,000.
See, the right person to answer this question is Mr. Nagapan.
Go ahead, Mr. Nagapan.
No. See, if we sit on cash, we'll keep on sitting on cash only. So it should be always be sort of an asset allocation and diversify within that asset. And then, keep booking profits at the asset allocation model itself will tell you to book profits at certain levels and invest in invested stocks or under-invested assets. So just have an Excel sheet based asset allocation model within that, diversify and go for a systematic investment as well as systematic disinvestment. You have to take out the cream, take out the froth. So it's actually a simple process. But what is more complicated is that what we see in the mirror, me, you and me, when we see we are the most complicated people, we complicate the simplest thing. So it's not all that difficult. Look at these, follow these 3 rules. Have an asset allocation based on your risk appetite and your age and the requirements and goals. And then within that each assets you diversify. and then go for only systematic investment plan, not for one-time investment, unless otherwise you are in that industry or very sure about it and all. And then on top of these three rules, you have to keep on taking out profits partly by systematic withdrawal plan as per your asset allocation model.
Next question from Mr. Dhanapalan. Sir, my question is not related to IPO, but some companies, they don't have a promoter like ITC. How are they running without a promoter?
Yeah, why do you need a promoter? Companies run by professional people. ITC don't have any promoter. ICICI Bank don't have any promoter. There are many companies, shares are almost 90% of the shares are out in the market. Okay, there is no need for a promoter. So it's done by professional people. Professional managers will understand. No need for the promoter.
How to avoid companies like Acropetal?
I'm not getting you, sir.
There was an issue called Acropetal sometime back. I mean, one of the issues that bombed. You live with it to make the job of professor simple. Yeah, such things also do happen. Yeah, L&T is also another example where companies manage without a promoter, identifiable promoter group.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
We can.
I think we have had a fairly long day of very fruitful discussions. Just to sum it up and propose a vote of thanks, may I request Mr. Hari of ISS, the CEO of ISS,
Yes, sir.
to sum up and propose a vote of thanks. Over to you, Mr. Hari.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to summarize what Mr. Karan has told us. The first thing is clients, the fund companies, why they go to the market for an IPO for various reasons. One is to raise the capital, or maybe they want to pay off a costly debt where they're paying a high rate of interest, or maybe to fund new projects, or they may want to invest in research and development, or maybe it could be to acquire another company. And when you go for an IPO company, invest in a company, what is the thing you can? You not necessarily like just like Zomato, the company need not have a big machinery or a plant or an office, because that also, if the idea is good, then people will definitely subscribe to that. And the other thing which we had is when a company is pricing its IPO, we should find out what it is in relation to its peers. What are the other peers who are in the same business, how they are performing, and accordingly have they priced it rationally. Then it also depends on the environment. When I said environment, Saran gave an example. Suppose a company is there with a rental income as the main business, and when during office lockdown, where all of us are working from home, the prospects of the company trading is very low. So it's better to avoid it. Then we also need to understand the company, whether it suits our investment purpose. Like the IT company, they have a large amount of cash, and we might think why they are not disposing as dividends. But they may require it because the technology is rapidly changing. They need to invest in the technology, or maybe buy another company to continue the business. And what we have said that never invest in a business where you don't understand, or you're not comfortable with the risk ratio. For the risk ratio what you are investing, you're not comfortable, don't invest in that. You should also understand what is the financial strength of the company, where your funds will go, whether it is going to go for some future business, or if you give an example where one of the companies, the money was going to the government and not to the future ones, so such things is better to avoid. We also have to know what the promoter, who's the promoter, what is the track record, how they have performed in other businesses, if at all this is the same promoter. Was there any red flag, some say we give anything against the promoter, or whether he has been declared insolvent or some, in the previous companies. And in the pre-IPO, what is the role of the promoter? How much is contributing to that? Whether he's trying to offload the stake, all this will form a part. There's also a risk of integrity risk, which Mr. Shan touched upon. And when we investing, we should read the prospectus. He said that prospectus is very lengthy, but at least the main points if you can cover, will give an idea whether the company, how it will be the future for the company. One of the players in an IPO is the underwriter. Underwriter, as per the rule, 90% of the IPO has to be subscribed. So the underwriter, he does everything to promote the company so that the 90% is subscribed. In case there's a shortfall, he should be in a position to take over that stake. And generally, the good underwriter will support a good company, so that his image does not suffer. But still, that's not a guarantee. It can go wrong also. So we have to take extra caution. Good underwriter need not necessarily ensure success of an IPO or the company performing very well. But there are some, he gives some talk on the oversubscription. The oversubscription could be because the number of people expect the company to perform very well. It depends on ROE and ROE, the net interest in the company, and where the future business prospects is there. And finally, as an investor, he has repeated that where the investment goal of the company is in sync with you, whether you are comfortable with the reward risk ratio, then we should try to avoid shares which are idle, which are not moving. Suppose the company is already listed in the market. These are things which I think at least I was able to summarize. So with just few words, I'd like to propose a vote of thanks to Saravanan for spending his valuable time and sharing his knowledge of how to invest in IPO. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Very useful session. We all enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
A lot of people participated through Zoom as well as YouTube. A lot of live interaction took place. Thank you very much for all the wisdom that you gave to us, and people who joined through Zoom as well as YouTube. Of course, the YouTube video is available, going to be available. People who have missed it and who want to refer to others, they can always share it with others so that